Hey everybody, how you guys doing tonight? We are live with a, well, let me just take that off for a second because that is not me. We're live here this January 18th. It is Martin Luther King's Day. When I was a kid, that didn't even exist. I'm getting old. And I'm going to bring on a guest that we've really never talked, but we've been Facebook friends for a while. I actually had reached out to him months ago when the podcast was first being done, and I asked him if he would come on, and he told me yes, he'd love to come on, but he couldn't until after the first of the year. Little did we know what would be happening 4 months ago, 5 months ago, however long ago I talked to him. So I reached back out to him like I always do. My little list when it tells me to, and I said, hey, are you still available to come on the show? And he says, what do you want to talk about? This is last week. And I said, well, I don't know. I think we might have a few things to talk about. So let me introduce you, Chris Berardi. He was the communications director for Francis Rooney, who served 2 terms in the Florida District, 19th U.S. Congressional seat of Florida. And I'm honored to have him on. I'm honored that he decided that, he would just come on this crazy show of ours and talk about it. And I told him there is zero agenda here. It's part of the thing about Let's Talk About It is to start talking to each other and not at each other, and to try to figure out solutions to problems and work together. So let me introduce to you Chris Berardi. Chris, let me put you on here. Thank you for coming on the Dan the Messenger podcast.
Hey, Dan, great to be on, and thanks for having me, and sticking with the time frame that we were going to have to try and make work for when I was officially out of the house and out of the office and could go do the show. So appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things. Everything happens on its own time. Like you can't force time to happen. Time just comes when it does. So I just find it ironic and also a blessing that I was able to get you now when, after all this happened, because you were there when everything went down a few weeks ago. And, I had no idea. I just wanted to have you on the show just to talk because, listen, I'm a Florida native. My whole family's from your area where you went to college, UD. So Dayton, Cincinnati, my whole family's Midwest.
Go Flyers.
And I spent a little time down in that area or up in that area in Dayton. And my young years were there and I had a great time. So welcome to the show. Thank you for representing and being a part of the system and trying to be a part of the solution, not the problem. When you were there, what was going on in your mind? What did you think before that day happened? What were your thoughts?
Yeah, again, appreciate it, Dan. And, interesting. We would have had plenty to talk about, even if what happened on the 6th didn't happen. If it had just been a normal rally and a normal day, there'd still be plenty to talk about. It started off pretty normal. It started off, so for a little reference, the night before, the evening before, went out to a restaurant here in town. And if you know anything about what's going on in DC right now, we're still we have been in dining for since right before Christmas, and still going through that. So heat lamps fired up and everything. It wasn't that cold. We were able to sit outside and have a drink and a bite to eat, and stopped at a place that I usually go to on a fairly regular basis. And just we started to see the night before some Trump people showing up, some people coming up for the rally. Could have been more friendly, nicer group of people, very, very energetic, happy. They were not, it wasn't an angry group of people. It wasn't a crowd that we would think would be something that would lead to what happened on the 6th. So had a great night that night, just talking to people and having some fun and sharing stories about the president and what he's done for the country and what everyone believed were the good points of what he's done, and it was a lot of fun. And lead into the next day, we decided we'd go down and a group of us hear the rally and go down to the Ellipse, which is the area between where the Washington Monument is and the White House, where the stage was set up for the Trump speech. And so we walked from my place to the Capitol about a mile, and then the Capitol down to the Ellipse, which is a mile and a half or so, 2 miles. And all along the way, a lot of people there, a lot of support for the president, obviously, a lot of patriotic display of flags and American flags, Gadsden flags, Trump flags, you name it. The mood seemed to be pretty good, despite the fact that in a few hours the Electoral College was going to, the vote was going to be certified and Biden was going to be declared the president. I think from the people I talked to in the crowd, I think most people understood that was just what's going to happen. They really were here to show their support for the president and to thank him for what he'd done more than cause any kind of problem that day. So we got down to the speech area, and the speech was and some in the audience in your audience may or may not like this, but it was an inflammatory speech. It was a speech that riled people up. Now the president was very careful to not say to say peacefully, go march to the Capitol and show them, show your support for our cause, show them that you believe that this election outcome was not right. He very carefully said and very clearly said, peacefully. But at that point, I think the crowd had gotten so fired up about the election being stolen that some in the crowd, and it's always some, right? If there were a couple 100,000 people there, which there at least was that many, it only takes a handful, a couple of percent to cause problems, and that's what happened. That's what happened. You saw the extreme side of the supporters of the president do things that were truly terrible and unlike anything I thought I'd ever see from. And I'm a Republican, a conservative Republican. I would say our side's the good guys, and so it's something you would never think you'd see from the good guys, right? You expect them to be peaceful, to be people who support law enforcement and support our police officers, and would never do what we saw happen that day. Again, stress that it's definitely a minority group of supporters, certainly by no means what the mood of the entire day was like. And the Capitol Police, who 9 times out of 10 do a fantastic job. I've had to, I've worked with them for 4 years in different ways, as being someone who worked in the House, and they're always professional, always well trained and good at what they do. They were just completely understaffed, and the leadership of the Capitol Police has a lot to answer for, because they were in no way ready for what happened, and given the size of the crowd, they should have been far more prepared. I think we've seen that in the police chief for the Capitol Police resigning, and you'll see both the Sergeant at Arms of the Senate and Sergeant at Arms of the House also resigning in the coming days. So, it was totally a leadership failure on the part of those in charge of the Capitol Police, and not the officers who work so hard every day. They did everything they could. So
I'm going to inject here, because
Sure.
Let me try this. Right. So people understand. I'm going to take this down for a second. This is live. Chris was a communications director for one of our congressmen that was serving, and Francis Rooney in the state of Florida, 19th district. So his job is to actually communicate, talk. And what I do is I talk too. And I keep telling you guys over a period of time that if we don't start talking to each other instead of at each other, we'll never be able to get through any of these issues. And I've called, listen, Chris, if anybody's listened to the show for more than a second, and they've heard me mention anything political, I've thrown everybody underneath the bus because I think we could all be better Americans, all of us. And I'm going to share two things that you shared on your Facebook page that I don't even think people understand. We must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools. That was one quote you posted today. And another quote you posted was, our lives begin to the end of the day. We become silent about things that matter. Now, for most of you yahoos, and I'm not saying this in a bad sense. I'm saying for people who don't understand history, that was Martin Luther King Jr., Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Those were his quotes. Chris posted those today. So I'm going to tell you something. I'm right down the middle. The Republican Party, when I was really young, actually tried to recruit me. And I said, no, thank you. I got other things I want to do. And not because I was anti-Republican. My grandfather, he looked like Ronald Reagan. I kid you not, Chris. So let's get through that part of, yes, you're Republican. Oh, you dirty Republicans. Like, come on, guys. Look at this guy. He's got a baby face. He's literally, putting up quotes of one of my favorite leaders that I grew up with, respecting, who gave one of the most moving speeches as a little child that I could listen to, saying, I have a dream.
Yeah,
and go ahead.
I think, Dan, those were two, obviously Martin Luther King Day today, Martin Luther King Jr. Day today. It's important to put the quotes up for me. I'm kind of a quote guy. I do that on various different days for different events or people. And I picked those two specifically today because I think they say a lot about where we're at as a country. The first, obviously, is that there has to become a point where we have to find a way to work together on things for the good of the country, as Republicans, as Democrats, across all spectrums, not just in politics, just in life in general. That can't always be us versus them. We have to find a way to do a better job as people, not just as politicians, but as people. And the second one, because I think there are definitely some things that are worth fighting for today, and certain constitutional rights and liberties that I see maybe close to being in danger of slipping away if we don't write some courses and fix some things. And I think those two things go hand in hand. The bipartisanship and the idea that. And specifically, when I posted the second quote, I was thinking of the First Amendment today and the right of free speech, because I see that being challenged on social media. I see that being challenged on TV. I see that being challenged on college campuses and in movies and in Hollywood and in all different walks of life. That free speech seems to be becoming free if it agrees with me. Or whoever is in charge of the platforms that allow you to speak. So I really feel pretty strongly that we have to fix those problems. And there are plenty of things we can do in a bipartisan fashion in government, in life. We're going to see a president inaugurated on the 20th, and it's going to be a peaceful transition of power, just like it always is. And President-elect Biden, soon to be President Biden, can go a long way in reaching out to the other side, reaching out to the half of America that didn't vote for him. And there are things. Infrastructure is a topic that I think is a bipartisan topic. Both Republicans and Democrats want to see things happen to improve our interstate highways and bridges, ports, airports, all the things that are necessary. And I think that that we also see some bipartisan agreement on what should happen with criminal justice reform around the country in sentencing and in restoration of voter rights and those kind of things. I think there's again, some bipartisan support there, certainly enough to have a conversation and maybe get things moving. So, I think those from a bipartisan aspect are two areas where we can start. The first thing we have to start with, to have any bipartisanship, for Biden to truly do what he says he wants to do and heal the country, the first thing he needs to do is implore the Senate to not take up impeachment and to implore Speaker Pelosi to not deliver the articles to the Senate. President Trump will be out of office by then. There's no reason to move forward. We're not even sure constitutionally if moving forward to impeach a president who's no longer in office is something that's allowed by the Constitution. It certainly doesn't seek to unite, and there aren't going to be 17 Republican senators that go along with impeachment. So it's purely show. It's not going to happen. And but by dropping that, I think that's one good way to start to move forward. If you're a new administration coming in.
Now, my audience, whoever does listen to this crazy person half the time, will know that I really don't pay attention to the news. But I knew in my Facebook timeline that day the president was going to speak was going to be a big deal because my Facebook was lighting up. So that's why I paid attention to it. And now what you're talking about as communications director or former communications director is basically, all right, it's going to be a peaceful transition of power. We're going to have a new president. Just like every other president, I've always honored our presidents before us, and I will, whoever our president is. If it's Mickey Mouse, I would say, "How you doing, Mr. President?" Because that's how much I respect our country, our rights. Our Constitution starts with "We the people." And if I'm wrong, Chris, is there any other constitution on the planet that starts with "We the people"?
We're it.
Okay, so look, good, ding, ding, ding. I won a prize. That's our Constitution. We the people. And then when people are upset, I say to them, "Well, do something about it." I didn't mean go to the damn Capitol and do that. I'm saying vote. Learn how to get people in and out. Now, I want to ask you a question about your former position, Congressman Rooney. Did he make a pledge to only run 2 terms? Was that a pledge? Or was
he's a supporter of term limits. We filed several bills about term limits. Everything from, of course, term limits is a constitutional amendment, so easy to get sponsors for that. He had come up with the idea, and we had pushed it of instead of a simple amendment like that, we would just say that after 8 years of service or 12, I forget the number now. That you can continue to serve in the House or the Senate. You're not going to get paid for it anymore, and you're not going to get any more benefits from it. So, a de facto term limit policy that got far less sponsorship because people, I think, up here realized that could actually happen and be law, and they would be out of their jobs. And so he promised to serve a limited number of terms, and he decided that after 2, he'd accomplished the main things that he wanted to accomplish, and that was money to fix the Everglades issues and fix our water quality in Southwest Florida, something he ran, and to push the offshore drilling moratorium that would keep oil rigs out of the eastern Gulf of Mexico, east of the military mission line, from being there. It's a current ban. It expires in 2022. The House passed it. It was a bill he sponsored, led, and fought for. It's in the Senate. It was in the Senate. They did not act on it, but we moved it through the House and did it with the support of 26 of 27 of the Florida members of Congress. So, hold
on, Chris. You guys are supposed to be like the evil empire. You're not supposed to care about the environment. Come on, get out of here.
Exactly.
You care about the environment? Get out of here.
It's environment and economics. Water quality drives Florida. So,
I mean, I think we all got to drink water, right? I mean, and we want our natural life to be around, but that's just common sense to me. So
It is. It is.
okay. So hey, listen, you guys, you gave it a not two limit, but you gave it a 2-term shot. You did your part.
Correct.
It didn't get kicked up to the other rounds. So that's part of, to me, I respect what you guys did, because he could continue to run. I guarantee you could have won a seat just like the rest of them.
Sure. Sure. And we got the Everglades part. We got the money coming for that, and it's a steady flow of money now each year. So that deals with a lot of the issues that affect the Cape Coral, Fort Myers, Naples area water quality, and the ocean, the Gulf, the Caloosahatchee River. So long-term success, although it takes a while for the water to clean up. The money's there to do the projects now.
Captains for Clean Waters, another local guys. Listen, anybody who thinks they can't do something, well, 2 boat captains, they did. They raised enough hell that they got a pretty damn good charity that I've been around and I respected, because I got into solar. And to me, it just goes hand in hand, renewables with clean water. And I have a daughter who's 26. Do you have any kids, Chris?
No kids. No.
All right. Well, lucky you, because right now, I mean, she's 26, and she's just getting her start in life. And I'm not upset because of the election. I'm upset about everything else. There's just so much. Yeah. So you're pro term limits. I shout that to the term.
Absolutely.
And listen, I say things, because this isn't proper primetime TV where we can have to say everything politically correct. So I take the heat. I get told to shut up constantly. And I've made fun of all of them. So they probably would never want to talk to me, which is fine. But there's no reason you should be in the damn House or Senate for 30, 40 years, for crying out loud. That's not what it was for, right? What was the idea of being a Congress or senator back in the old days when they first started? Wasn't it represent the best and the brightest to kind of help, like what you guys just did or tried to do or did do?
Yeah, it's the idea of public service and to give back after, leading a successful life, to contribute back to your community, then go back to live under the laws that you enacted, and let somebody else take over and have their ideas. George Washington set the precedent of term limits by declining to run for president a 3rd term. And, it's an example we should follow.
I came up with a crazy, silly idea. I said, well, hell, why don't we just start on a state level like they did with medical marijuana? Why don't we, the next 2 years, focus on getting enough signatures to get an amendment put on our books to vote on in 2 years, implement term limits on our own senators and congressmen. This is in the state of Florida. Could we do that? Is that possible?
Yeah, Florida has them. The House and Senate in Florida are term limited. They have to go after 8 years in the House, 2 terms in the Senate. So, I'd argue that Florida is one of the best run states with a balanced budget, and seems like lots of people want to come there and take part in the Florida lifestyle. And so I don't think term limits have hurt the success of our state one bit.
Well, that's in the state itself. I'm talking about like the 19th district, like Francis Rooney. He served on a national level. Yeah. Can we on a state level put a petition to put term limits on our state level senators and congressmen? Is that possible?
No.
Can that happen? No. Well, that's a good idea. I tried.
Yeah, it's still a constitutional issue, so it'd have to be the U.S. Constitution. That's a matter of that.
So, I mean, like, is there a strategy? I know you guys.
I like the way you're thinking.
I listen. I say vote the bastards out, but listen. And I made it this way. I respect anybody who wants to try to serve the people, because right now it's a selfless job. No one gives a crap, and everyone has got an opinion of what you're doing wrong or right, and they're constantly telling you what you're doing wrong, and don't ever acknowledge what you're trying to do right. When I was 10 years old, I got to go to Washington, and I've been there one time, and I was just amazed. As a 10-year-old kid, I just was blown away. And, people from all over the world want to come to our country for a reason. We were the melting pot of the world because it was the land of opportunity. Home of the free, land of the brave, all that good stuff. And it's still there. So whatever's going on right now, we can still work together. The good old days. Let's go back to, we're similar in age, so I'm sure we can remember when Reagan was in office, and the Democrats, did they have control? I can't remember all this stuff, but I do remember who was the guy that he was always dealing with behind the scenes. Tip.
Yeah,
Tipper,
so I'm a Republican. I'm a Republican because I grew up in the era of Ronald Reagan, and Tip O'Neill was the Speaker of the House.
Tip O'Neill, yes.
Yeah,
and they were famous for doing things. They would do.
They were.
You know.
They were. And I'll tell you a couple of things, and this will be a good segue into the other quote that the First Amendment part of the quotes that I shared. And that's back in the Reagan Tip O'Neill days. We had 3 TV stations, right? We didn't have CNN yet. We didn't have any cable news yet. None of that. We didn't have any internet yet. We didn't have any of that. So it was easy for members to get together outside of Congress, go have a drink and hash out their differences and come together to pass something bipartisan. It was never easy. The idea of passing legislation is not something that should be easy. The founders they set up a difficult process for a reason. You don't want to make it too easy to pass laws, especially too quickly, where you might pass something on a snap judgment instead of looking at the big picture and the long-term consequences. So set up that right for a reason. But they were able to come together and have a drink. Now we have 24/7 news coverage. We have people who watch not the news, but their news. So it's not whether if you watch CNN or Fox, you're not getting the same story. You're not getting the same news, and you're not watching the other channel. So you hear your set of facts, not these sets of facts. And it's the same on the other side. If you move to social media, now you get, even before the censorship part, that's a terrible thing. You get algorithms that give you more of the things you like, you get to see more of, and less of the other stuff you don't like. So you hear less and less of the opposing opinion, more of the things you already agree with, almost to the point where you no longer realize that there is another side out there, or certainly not a legitimate side. So now throw in the censorship part, where now you're really not seeing anything. And as a matter of fact, you're only getting one side. You're only going to, in the direction we're going, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Snap, all those, you're only going to get one side, because if that opinion dissents from what their fact checkers believe and they're liberally slanted, then you're just not going to see the other side. And the last part, I think, of that push to a wider divide is that as redistricting has happened in the House and the Senate over the years, we redistrict every 10 years. For your listeners who don't know, we redraw the congressional maps. Seats change a little bit. Borders, boundaries of who you get to vote for change a little bit. And what we've seen is that red districts have become redder, blue districts bluer. So there's less reason for me to talk to you if you're a Democrat in my very conservative Republican district, and vice versa. So these are things that are huge problems that we have to deal with. So we can fix the way we redistrict. We can impose some kind of fairness doctrine, which is something that used to happen, which required equal time for differing viewpoints on news networks, and we can make social media understand that if they're going to silence one side of the country, that they're no longer a platform, but they're a media source and have to be regulated like one, which opens them up to lawsuits and should change the way they think about things.
So, and I think this is one of those bilateral. Both parties, I think, are kind of seeing this, right? Because I've seen Pelosi and some of the others complain about being blocked, air quotes blocked, right?
Yeah.
So is that something that's actually going on? Are they really trying to work on getting these guys in front of before Congress to figure out what's going on?
No, I think you might see so much in Congress that happens for show, in committees especially. But I think you'd find more probably bipartisan agreement in doing something about redistricting, and maybe the fairness doctrine issue than you would about the social media stuff right now, because right now that favors one side. That's the side that's in power, and I don't see them having a whole big appetite for changing the fact that their voice is getting through and the other isn't.
I think that podcasting is one of the best forms right now of outlets that are people really catching on to. It gives us an opportunity to really say what we need to say without us being edited or taken down. And a question I have for you is, you're no longer part of this, so because I posted it, it was from a news that someone shared. What the hell's going on with this voting on taking away brother-in-law and sister-in-law and half-brother? What is that about? Please tell me. Please help me with this one.
Sure. That's ridiculous. Fortunately, House rules on things like that affect nothing but the House, so House of Representatives. So those kind of rules only affect how they speak on the House floor or the things in bills that are written. So instead of having mother written into a bill, they're going to say something oddly stupid that
like it
is unclear. The ironic part of that is that as Speaker Pelosi argued so strongly in favor of impeachment, she violated her own rule that she passed by repeatedly saying she was a mother and a grandmother, and she did that 5 or 6 times in her speech, and that was 3 or 4 days after she had the rule passed that changed that language. So I guess it's a show thing and doesn't really mean very much even to their side. I think it's a ridiculous thing to start.
Because I my audience knows I promise you I don't pay attention to the news. I only see things pop up in timelines. And when I seen that, I'm going, I got short-term memory issues from my accident. I got a lot of stuff going on, and it takes me a while to kind of comprehend things. I'm going, am I reading this right? What in the hell's going on here? And I didn't understand and so I shared it, and guess what? It got fact-checked.
Oh, of course it did. Of course it did. Yes. So, Dan, I'll tell you something that got fact-checked, which I found, kind of absurd, and it shows you where we're going. But Congressman House of Representatives, Congressman Adam Kinzinger from Illinois, posted the same quote, the one about standing up for what you believe in, the MLK Jr. quote that you read earlier. He posted that to his Facebook page, and Facebook put a fact check, partly false tag on that just today. So, that's where we're at in fact check world. It's a little ridiculous.
It will, unfortunately, I don't know. I feel like I'm living in a bizarre world. I said that if I gave $100 billion to 100 of the best writers in Hollywood with the budget, saying I want to make the most out-of-the-world movie there ever could be, the most outrageous thing you could ever possibly imagine, they still couldn't have replicated 2020 and the beginning of 2021. It's like the Avengers Part 1, and now the sequel's kicking in, and I'm going, when's Tony Stark going to snap his fingers? Because good God, please. And I don't say it jokingly. I do, because you either laugh or cry about it, or you do both. And I've done both, laugh and cried. Not because of the election, not because just because humanity has gone through so much. My charity, Hope Number 4 Humanity 2020, is about giving hope and faith back to people that we will get through this. And having you on is a blessing. And I we time limit, but I'd like to have you on a little bit more, because I have a couple more questions, if you don't mind. You okay with that?
Let's go for it.
All right. We'll be right back on the Dan the Messenger podcast, brought to you by Hope Number 4 Humanity 2020.com. hope, number 4, humanity2020.com. We'll be right back. All right, since this is live, we were just getting right back into it. So welcome back to the Dan the Messenger podcast. I have Chris Berardi. He was the communications director for Francis Rooney, which was the 19th District, Florida District congressional seat. Now, Francis Rooney honorably only served 2 terms. He didn't want to run anymore. He did his job. Thank you very much. 2 things, a couple questions I have. How do we become more objective about politics? How do we look at it through a that's the way it is scenario without the news giving us perspectives? Because I think we both agree that there are news outlets that are using agendas, and they have producers in their ears. They usually have talking points ahead of time. And the second the lawyer, that's the anchor, gets off narrative, his producer's yelling him in his ear, telling him, no, get back to this question. It's how it works. Once you see behind the curtain and you know how it works, you can't hide it. So I've got you raw and the clear. How do we become more objective about politics? What's your solution? Any bright ideas?
Boy. I'd say maybe start with people. So there's a couple. There's maybe some short-term and long-term ideas. Long-term, we just have to do a better job of educating people from grade school on up. And I don't mean just teachers. I mean families have to be more involved and have to be more part of the discussion. And I know that's always hard, but it's not unprecedented. It's what we did for many years, for decades, for generations. So families have to be more involved. Schools have to do a better job. I think colleges have moved on from, and even high schools to some degree, have moved on from teaching people how to think to teaching them what to think. And that's a bad direction. Colleges were always a place of debating ideas and taking different positions. I distinctly remember at University of Dayton having to argue different sides of the same issue in history or philosophy or whatever the class may have been. It's not because you're supposed to believe each side is right or feel like you are just being a politician by taking up 2 sides of an issue. It's to give you the idea of how to have a debate and also how to listen to a dissenting viewpoint with an open mind. And we're losing that, and we have to get that back. In the short term, I think people can start to do a better job of watching news sources that are less biased in one way or the other. C-SPAN comes to mind if you would like to just see what happens on the floor of the House or the floor of the Senate.
I forgot about that. Is it still up?
It is. It's something that you're just going to see the raw. What happens? You're going to see what happens on the floor and of the House. You'll see some committee meetings even on occasion. Then you have to, then maybe do a little follow-up, because C-SPAN's not always going to explain to you what exactly is going on in what they're showing, because they're just showing you what's actually happening. They're not giving you a tutorial in it. So, you'd have to have a little bit of an intellectual curiosity to then figure out what you're watching, go ask some questions and talk to people or look some stuff up. And the other thing, and I see so much of this on both sides, it's, for God's sakes, before you share something on Facebook or Twitter or wherever, just do some homework and maybe fact check it. Maybe check 2 or 3 sources before you just run with it, because it can form what you think.
Well, yeah, the younger generation has got to the quick, 9-second vine. You got to get it out there. You got to get your tagline. You're a marketing guy. I'm a marketing guy. I get branding. You got a cup in your hand. There's tons of things that we know, that we learned, that help us communicate orally, visually, subliminally with branding messages. And these kids have learned that instant gratification is through me. MySpace, Twitter, all selfie. And really one of my favorite quotes from a Democratic president, John F. Kennedy, which he's infamous, he's famous for, is what is it? Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country.
Yeah.
That was Democrat.
Yeah, sure.
I don't care who it came out of. That was a great quote, because that's how we get along. We're not individual animals. We are creatures of habit. We like to be around each other. Social media, I put it straight on social media for us getting sucked in to the matrix of, I think a lot of people's lives are so miserable that they started using social media to make a different life for themselves. And now they can't escape it. Like,
that's true. That's true.
We are in living history, Chris, right? Living history. Like, I don't think half the people understand this is 9/11. This is a history that being in a war is about the best thing you can compare what the American public and the global population has been through this last year. Would you agree? Is that fair? Is that a fair assessment? Like, the amount of stress and uncertainty and having to go home to a family and know what your kids are and all that stuff. Like, it's really been at that type of level, except there's not been any bombs dropped. It's just been a year of living dangerously, per se.
Yeah,
right?
we can't continue to lock down a country regardless of why. And I know there's a virus and it's a problem and it's something that we have to deal with. But we also have all kinds of other things that health issues, economic issues that go along with not being open, and we don't see much benefit from it. If you look at Florida and what Governor DeSantis has done, which in my opinion, he's done a great job of managing the crisis. Obviously, these are uncharted waters and nobody's perfect in how they're doing it. But we're a far cry better in Florida than we are in California or New York, who have been on the strictest of lockdowns and have seen their economics, their businesses, their small businesses, their just tank. We've seen increases in suicides, in cancer deaths, because we aren't getting diagnoses that we need. We've seen terrible side effects that are far worse than maybe the disease in how they affect people's lives when there's another way to do it. And
now, let me stop you for 1 second. I'm a COVID-19 survivor. Okay.
Yeah.
So half the audience is going to be like, well, how come he's not going after him? And I'm like, listen,
Sure.
I've done that. Believe me, I'm not going after politicians. I have done my word of spreading that it was a real virus,
Sure.
that it was treatable, that it's beatable, and there's all good things you can do.
Yeah.
And I've also stated, as a small business owner myself, who's lost a business a couple different times, who understands small businesses are suffering. Mm-hmm. And thanks to our governor and having some balls, kept us open. Yep. And guess what? You're not here anymore. You're up in Washington, right?
Right.
All right. So I'm here. And let me tell you, as a Floridian, I'll be 50 this year. I have never seen season start this early in my life.
Oh, sure. I've a lot of friends still. I was a realtor there for 12 years before getting into the whole game of politics, and have a lot of friends who are seeing maybe the best business they've ever seen in the real estate, and because people realize that Florida's doing things right, and they're leading the country in how we can keep an economy open and still deal with a very deadly and serious issue.
And I can tell you this, I'm in groups, I'm in research groups with some of the best frontline doctors, flcc.net. They're not the research group, they're an advocate, but they've done amazing things and they got a drug out there that we needed. But I'm in research groups that are private and government for what I've been involved in since April. Yeah, April. And I told everybody that the train had already left the building. Like, it's going to do what it's going to do. We've done everything we could physically do to slow this thing down. It was never saying to stop the spread. It was to slow the spread.
Right.
And it became from 15 days to 30 days.
15 days.
And Americans,
yeah.
And then in 30 days, and Americans did everything that was asked of them. They didn't complain. They did it. And it became month after month after month. And finally, governor opened up the state, did what he had to do, because small businesses were going to just fall. And right now, they're still falling apart. They're still trying to keep their 20 employees around. And thank God for Congress and the Senate for passing this last bill. Listen, I get it. Oh, you're a socialist. No, I'm not. I'm a realist. When you destroy people's businesses for something that they had nothing to do, they needed help. And that's what our government did, right?
I think, Dan, you've hit on exactly the right thing. And even a guy like me, who's a very limited, government kind of guy, believer in Calvin Coolidge, Ronald Reagan, smaller government, that kind of thing. The difference is that we're not this time. We weren't propping up businesses that failed because they did it wrong. We were propping up businesses because we broke them as a government. And it's the adage, you break it, you fix it. This was, the government forced them to close. The government forced them to lose business, to suffer terrific losses in how they operated and affect their lives. And it was the government's job to fix it.
And the second part of why Florida is getting so busy is because a lot of people are running from the virus in their towns. Now, the reason why Florida, New York, and California were the early birds to the show was because we're the hot spots for tourism. People from all over the world came down here. What do you think was going to happen? I'm not saying like, duh, I'm just saying that's just the realistic nature of the beast. We didn't know what was going on. And Florida and New York and California were just first up, first at bat. We lucky us and unlucky us at the same time. And now that the hotspots have moved around our country and these people are scared to death, they are coming down for a couple of reasons. One, because of the virus, are trying to escape it, which God bless them. Two, we're not under draconian measures. Why is New York and California losing people by the droves and they're moving to either Texas or Florida? Why? Just a simple question. I mean, it's an easy answer, right? Why are they doing it?
Sure. I mean, New York's got a couple of problems. First is the virus and the lockdowns, and so that's issue number one. And the other issue is that since the riots and the protests and all that happened following George Floyd in the summer when things were looted, burned, rioted, there's still things boarded up there. They're not opened, and people don't feel safe anymore, and they're feeling like they're paying taxes for less and less safety, less and less service, and less ability to go live their lives. And that certainly is a factor. And the other part of that is that they've realized that maybe their companies have realized that for a lot of New Yorkers that were paying exorbitant rent in Manhattan for a shoebox of an apartment, that maybe they don't have to operate from Manhattan. Maybe technology is advanced to where they can do their job from Florida. And, so you're seeing some of that take hold too.
So that's for us, we got lucky. Texas and Florida are probably the two luckiest states out of the whole shebang, what's going on. Depending on the economies, ours should be fine. We are doing what we can with the virus. I know you got connections to the governor. I know a few people who's got more connections. I really am trying to get a hold of them.
Sure.
I would really like to talk to him about being on a task force for the virus. Seriously, legit, no BS. I've been trying to get a hold of him because as someone who's been an advocate and survivor, I want to help be part of the solution. So that you can help me with that honestly, I'd really appreciate that, because also some of your guys, I want to give a shout out. Who replaced Mr. Your former congressman? I think that is
Byron
awesome.
Donald. Byron Donald's replaced Congressman Rooney on January 3rd, and he's in office now. And haven't been a lot of votes yet in Congress. It's January is a weird time in general for new members coming in, but he is saying all the right things, and I have no doubt he'll represent us well in Southwest Florida and do a good job.
He's a Republican. He's
He is
40 years old. Is he 40?
Not sure. Somewhere in that range. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly.
And he's the third black Republican to be voted in Florida as a congressman. I didn't know that. I just looked that up and went, wow, that is amazing, because he beat the pants off of the Democrat. It was like 171,000 to 271,000 votes.
Sure.
That was awesome.
And Southwest Florida is not a competitive district in the general. It all happens in the primary.
And your friend and former running, you guys ran against each other, Dane Eagle.
Yes.
I know you've ran against each other.
Yes.
And what'd you guys run against for?
State House representing Cape Coral area.
And he beat you.
He did.
Sorry. I ain't rubbing it in.
Dane did a great job of representing us. He voted like a true conservative, and not sure I'd have voted differently from what he did. And now he's doing a great job with the DEO up in Tallahassee, Department of Economic Opportunity, as their director, and doing his best to get the unemployment system and our economic stuff back online following the virus. So he's doing good work.
Now, someone else got called up to the president-elect. Who in Florida got called up? Someone, I didn't see who it was. Do you know who it is that Biden picked? Somebody that's in our system through, I don't know.
I don't. No.
Yeah. I just seen it, and I didn't catch the name, and my memory's so bad I have to have everything written down. So let's talk about you finishing this up. And one before we finish up, will you come back on the show another time?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, sure.
Right.
We're happy to do it.
I had Christy McLaughlin on.
I actually visited with her when she was up for the Trump rally on the 6th. Saw her the day before, the morning of, and had fun talking to her and spending time with her.
And she was awesome, because she's a constitutional lawyer. But what about you now? What's up for you now? What are you doing? What's your
Well, we'll see. Doing a little contract work now for a few different people, and enjoying that. Still in the comms realm, and probably looking at a few more years in Washington before getting to come back home to Southwest Florida and enjoy that sunshine and the great beaches.
Any final words of, because we are in living history. We couldn't. The last time I think a generation actually went through what we went through was probably the World War II, as far as the magnitude on a global ramification. Right, it's that epic. And most of our grandparents are gone. There's no one there from that time. So How do we make sense out of the senseless right now, moving forward? What gives you faith and hope that this next year we can get back on the path of success and being proud Americans and representing our country?
I think, to be optimistic, I think that I would say that most people in America are good people who want the best for this country, and the vast majority want the best for this country, and given the opportunity, will work together to achieve it. As far as the virus, as far as the lockdowns, I think there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and a lot of people have said this phrase, but this too shall pass. And America has a history of overcoming obstacles and continuing to be exceptional, and I think we'll continue to do that.
I always say this is a shift. This is, the pre-19 is gone. Get over it. Now it's new world. We live, we learn, we move forward. Lean into it, not back from it. Chris, when I come to Washington, if I can make it up there eventually after all it's done, we got to go out to dinner. We'll
show you all the best places and have a good time.
I haven't been there since I was 10 years old.
Well, you go to the bars now.
Yeah, I can go. But I appreciate your time, Chris. Thank you for being a man of your word. Even though it was crazy times, we booked it months and months and months ago. I hope the audience got something out of this, and we'll have you back on and we'll talk about funner things hopefully now on, baseball games. And I haven't watched any of that stuff, but and please,
I'm a Nats season ticket holder, so go Nats and let's have a season this year.
Yeah, and I was serious about the other thing about trying to get a hold of the governor. I want to help, I really do. So
that sounds great.
If you can give me a little shout out, and appreciate that, Chris. Everybody, thank you for tuning in, and thank you for Chris Berardi, the former communications director for Congressman Francis Rooney, the Florida 19th district, represented us great for the environment, and hopefully we can do more with that. Chris, have a beautiful night. Have a blessed day, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the Dan the Messenger podcast, watching on Facebook Live, and see you around. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
All right.